Okay, welcome to the Barbell Strikes Back. I'm James McDermott. That's Miguel Porter, and we're live. Miguel, this is exciting.
This is exciting.
I've done some live podcasts before, but I don't think ever one with video. So this is actually no, excuse me. I just recently did one with the New York Weightlifting Podcast with Sarah Soto. So this is a new thing, learning a new skill, and it's easier than I thought it would be.
Right. Yeah.
Really, you just have to download the software. Actually, no, there isn't. Yeah, there isn't software. You just have to make an account, and boom,
Right.
it's ready to go. And hopefully, we'll get some people that come in to watch. But today, we're going to be talking all about our top 5 movie training scenes, which has been fun to go through. Some of these things I was remembering, and I was going through YouTube, be like, let me watch that scene again, make
Right.
sure I remember what actually happened, and I'm not just romanticizing the scene. But up front, for anyone that's listening in the future, not on the live stream, there will be heavy spoilers going down. I'm assuming, like at least I'll be talking about the movies and these scenes. So if you've not seen some of these movies, you may want to skip, go watch them, and then come back. Or if you don't care, just continue to listen to Miguel and I discuss things. Also, these aren't necessarily our favorite movies of all time. These are just movie training scenes that we thought were cool, helpful. There's a good lesson to be taken from it since we're both coaches and athletes involved in weightlifting, CrossFit, and other things. Miguel, are any of these your favorite or top movies of all time or anything like that?
I would say some of them are big on the list of like influential to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about necessarily favorite. Um, but yeah, some of these are 100% like when I think of my training and my life as an athlete, were very big into it. Push me down some roads.
Well, hopefully you'll tell some of those stories of how some of these movies, pushed you down some of these maybe dark paths,
Yeah.
that happen in training. Yeah, I would say for me, most of them, really only one of them is in my top like 10 movies of all time. And it's actually in the top 3. So that really, the rest of them are just the same, like when I'm watching them, oh, okay, that's cool that I'm seeing it on the screen. And that motivates me maybe more from a coaching perspective, but also as an athlete on just like lessons you can learn. And it's funny how in these movies, there's so many like little nuggets that you could just gloss over it while you're eating your popcorn. And instead of being, like, oh, I should do that too.
Right.
That makes sense. Well, here, let's get started. I'll go first. My first movie is Heavyweights, Disney
Mhm.
movie with Ben Stiller. There's he's not the main character. He is the villain of the movie. But the main character goes to a fat camp. His parents send him to a summer camp to try to get him to lose weight. And this movie, one, it's just a good time. It's funny. There's a lot of great scenes in it. It's a little dated, but when you watch it, some of the things that happen in there, I can relate to it because I was that chubby kid who could have easily been sent to a fat camp. And when I watch the movie, it's kind of funny because like it's like for me a duality of roles. Like I've been the kid, but I've also like trained and tried to be the fit trainer, And the lesson for me in the movie is, what not to do, even if you have the best of intentions. In the movie, Ben Stiller's character, Tony Perkins, buys the camp and he immediately gets rid of all of the fun. And when you look at it, like those kids were going to be inside playing video games, eating snacks, watching TV all summer. But even doing the things like riding go karts or going swimming and go on this thing called the blob, where one person's at the end of the big balloon, someone jumps on the other end and they go flying in the air. Uh, you know, they were still going to be active, right? They were still going to be moving their bodies and they weren't going to be as fit and healthy as he was trying to get them to be, which he was trying to film an infomercial. So he had ulterior motives to sell his product and stuff
Right.
like that. Because again, he's the villain. But it's just, don't remove the fun. And, it's an example of what not to do as a trainer. And even some of the stuff in the movie with like, how you're looking at your body weight and how you're, getting on the scale and putting everything on the scale, and that means everything. And I've lived my life that way too before, where the number on the scale didn't change or it went up, or and you're kind of hanging everything on that, and trying to get myself away from that, and also future clients away from that too.
Yeah. I feel like I've only seen heavyweights maybe once or twice. What happens at the end? Is there like so what are they training for? I guess is my question.
So they were just going to a summer camp,
Right.
and all of the kids there happened to be on the larger side.
Yeah.
And while they're there, there's just these beloved owners, which is Jerry Stiller and his wife, Ben Stiller's parents, are the owners, and they get bought out. I guess they didn't pay their bills, and Ben Stiller's character Tony Perkins buys it, and then he immediately changes everything. He brings in these boot camp instructors. There's like the one, I think his name is Lars, and they do the buddy system. I don't know if you remember that scene where they're like buddy, and then the
Oh
other
yeah,
guy's
yeah, yeah.
supposed to go buddy, you know, and they're just like doing these boot camps and all of these aerobic exercises and making the kids run miles. And one day, he announces over the loudspeaker, lunch is canceled today because of a lack of hustle. you know just all these things, and the kids are hiding food in the bedpost, and by the end, they revolt against him. They end up going on a hike with him in the woods, and they end up getting a deadfall pit prepared
Mm.
for him, so without the spikes to kill the bear, and he ends up falling in it. And they were tempted to push him off a cliff at one point, so they hated their trainer.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. And in the end, everything comes to fruition. He somehow they get the camp back, and the camp counselors are running the show.
That's interesting because I think when people immediately think of training scenes in movies or like the training montage, they think of it as like the team is now better and we're overcoming this cool thing. Now we'll be able to do this. But this is an example of the training scene is I can like better see what that scene was like from the last time I've watched it. But yeah, to think of a training scene as like this is the villain getting his way, is now everyone has to deal with all of this, and there's kind of no like resolution. Like a lot of training scenes go like you're bad at the beginning, and then by the end, all of this is coming as second nature, and you're way better at it now.
Yeah, like the it's funny because sometimes when you're coaching athletes, you feel like you're the villain, you know. But it's the movie doesn't end and be like, oh, and 10 years later, look how fit everybody is. All of the training scenes, like there's the one scene when they're on the slide boards. It's all like degrading to them. It's all
Right.
all the things that he says to them aren't you would never want to say as a trainer. But I imagine it's probably still today said in a lot of gyms. You
Yeah.
know, who knows where you could go. One thing that he does say in the movie that I thought was funny was he says, "You think I'm crazy? I'm not crazy. I just believe in you." And I was like, "Well, all right, yeah, I feel that way too a lot." You know, but the canceling lunch is rough, and then just making them do things way outside of their bounds that
Yeah.
you wouldn't have anybody do. And so yeah, that's you know I know it's like a weird way to start off the training scenes podcast with one that isn't like starting from A ending at B, high fives everywhere, but it's just something that like I always go back to it. I'm like, yeah, I never want to be that trainer,
Yeah.
and I would never want to train with that trainer either. And all the things that are happening in it are not fun, and training should definitely be fun.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's my number one. Oh, and then the scale scene too. It's not training, but I'm kind of cheating a little bit because like some of these things, the training scene like is threaded throughout.
Yeah. Yeah.
There isn't like one specific scene. Some movies are like that, but the scene where he's having them all get on the scale and they're all getting heavier and heavier, and he just starts losing his mind. Um, I was surprised when I was looking at a clip earlier. I forgot that Keenan Thompson was in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just forget like how long he's been around, like
Yeah,
forever, forever. This movie came out, I think, in 1996, something like that. So it's pretty crazy, or maybe even earlier than that.
right.
So that's my first one. Heavyweights. What's your first?
So my first one is from a movie called Never Back Down. It's like a MMA movie, I guess you could say. Um, so it starts with like the quintessential angry kid who has to move because he keeps on getting kicked out of schools, all of this stuff. He's kind of like gets into fights at football games and all of these things, but he moves to Florida and he sees these kids kind of beating up on another. But it turns out they're in some like underground MMA type of ring.
Like a Fight Club?
Um, Essentially, yeah. Um, but everyone down there is like training MMA. So he finds a gym. Um, and the coach's rule at this gym um, is that you can't fight like outside of the gym. It's all about like becoming a better person and using your aggression like well and things like that. So it's all about not fighting outside of the gym. This kid with anger issues obviously gets into a fight with some guys outside of the gym, gets kicked out of the gym. His life is kind of going downhill for a long time. And eventually he begs his coach to let him back into the gym. And his coach basically only allows him in under the condition that it's like pretty much a hell week when he gets back. Like it's going to be the hardest training he's ever dealt with. Um, So the training scene starts with that when he finally gets back into the gym and he's just getting his butt kicked the entire time. Um, and what I like about this training scene is that there's a lot of different elements to it. Um, they're doing like single arm kettlebell swings and um, they do a lot of mobility in it actually. I was looking at it again and I was like, oh yeah, they do a lot of stretching in this
Doing
training scene.
some Spider-Man lunges.
Yeah, and he's like doing like little sit and reaches and things like that. He's trying to get his kicks higher. Um, but it starts and obviously he's getting his butt kicked by the coach and he's learning all these things and trying to get better. And as the training montage goes on, you see that his life is also getting better. He's like better with his younger brother. His training is getting easier. The cinder block that they're like shot putting, he's throwing farther. He's able to like climb the ladder further and he's racing with his coach doing like kicks and submissions and stuff like that. Um, but it's a really cool scene and you can see his growth throughout it. And for me, this is the first one that popped into my head because it kind of this movie caused me, I think I saw it the summer in between sixth and seventh grade. And it caused me to want to do MMA that summer. I was watching a lot of like UFC Unleashed during the time as well. And I found a gym. It was LA Boxing at the time. At the time, also throwing it back, MMA wasn't allowed in New York yet.
Oh, really?
Right. So this was like, it was a big deal because the UFC um, was working to like have events in Madison Square Garden, but MMA was banned in New York, like fully. Um, so this gym that I went to, they had like boxing and like kickboxing and LA. Anybody who knows LA boxing knows that it's more of like a commercial cardio-y type gym. But they
This is in
had,
Albany.
yeah, it's no longer open, but um, yeah, so there was a kids or like youth class where it was like me and two other kids, but I convinced my mom to let me join that summer.
What did
And
your
that,
parents say when you said you want to join this gym and learn how to do this?
yeah, it was definitely hesitant for sure. But I was also a kid who I never really had the opportunity to play team sports. Like I know a lot of people did like travel teams and things when they were in elementary school, but I never really had that opportunity. Um, so this was kind of my first sport that I ever did was boxing. Um, and the fact that it was an individual sport kind of, I feel like, tailored the type of athlete that I became. But I did boxing for like a year, really because of this movie. Like the training scene was that cool. And I think it influenced the way that I train now. I'm very like cinematic, I would say, when I train. I always think of like how it looks from the outside. And it's that idea of like look good, feel good, do good, essentially.
Little
Um,
did we know that there's always the little camera filming you.
oh, 100%.
Is that how you look at it? Like you're on camera all the time?
Yeah. And I think that helps me a lot, actually. Um, but this movie, I would say, was the first instance of that directly for me as an athlete. Like there are some that are a lot older movies that are awesome training scenes, but I never got to actually put that into practice. But this is the first movie that the training scene fully caused me to become an athlete at this age.
How many times did you watch that movie throughout your boxing training once you joined the gym and
Oh,
everything?
so many times. It was on HBO like the whole summer. Once I got my iPod, I bought the movie on iTunes, and I would just have the scene kind of queued up whenever I needed
Mhm.
motivation. I'm pretty sure I watched it before the night before our first meet that we went to, also.
The, the first meet, did you compete against someone? How'd that go?
Oh, no, I mean like years later, like our first weightlifting meet, actually.
Oh! I thought you meant like a fight, like
Yeah, no, I actually never got to be too competitive with it. I've done like, of course, sparring sessions and like showcases at the gym, but um, because I was getting into middle school and I wanted to try out team sports, I wasn't able to do both because boxing was such a big commitment. But
that makes
it's
sense.
interesting. I do wonder how it would have went if I continued on that way.
Hey, is there a road back?
Not at this age.
You're retired.
Yeah.
Um, I'm surprised. So this movie isn't in like your all-time movies list.
No,
This
I
sounds
think
pretty
looking
obscure.
back, it's very much a movie of its time, like around that, I don't know, like 2009, 2012-ish era. They did a couple sequels that were like straight to Netflix. Um, I
That's
think
not
the
good.
movie's decent. It actually has a really big actor. I don't know if you know the guy Jimon Hansu.
Oh yeah, he's like in everything.
Yeah, and he's great in it. He's the trainer. Um, but looking back, Amber Heard's actually in it too. This is like one of her
Wow.
first roles that I remember her in. But the main guy, I don't even know if he's really done any other. That's probably like his biggest role that he's ever had. But the movie's okay, but no, it's not like an amazing movie. It just kind of gets you pumped up.
Yeah. Well, especially like the age you were at,
Yeah,
and it just kind of spoke to you. It's like so many of these like scenes, like they just speak to you and they teach you something, and it's probably not even what the filmmakers intended. But next
right.
thing you know, you're in a gym, and that's just the power of like movies.
Yeah,
It's stuff like this, like sports movies or a little training scene. Imagine how many people have watched some of these movies. Maybe not all of them that we're going to talk about, but like something like Rocky, and be like, I want to go work out. Like it's very powerful.
yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts on Never Back Down?
No, I think we'll expand as we go through the list.
Yeah, I found that there's like a compounding effect to some
Yeah,
of these things, especially the way that I ordered them. So I was like, well, I can't do that one first. Like they're not like in a specific order, but they kind of are, just
yeah.
in the story I'm trying to tell with them, I guess. But my second one is Yip Man, or
Mm,
or as I used to say, Ip Man, IP Man. It's with Donnie Yang. It's the story of Bruce Lee's, master trainer when he was, coming up. And actually, no, he wasn't coming up. He was actually like the master at this point with Wing Chun. And there's a scene in the movie where they had been invaded by Japan. This is during World War II, their village, and the townspeople, they always thought it was cool to have all the dojos and kung fu and then karate, all the different types of martial arts. And then they come to him and they're like, we want to be able to defend ourselves. We're getting beaten up by the Japanese soldiers, all these things. Will you teach us, Wing Chun and martial arts? So he has the whole town, or what seems like it, in an alleyway. And, right away when I'm rewatching it, I'm like, look how uniform they are. Everyone's paying attention. No one's having a side conversation, anything like that. And they're all just kind of going through these hand motions and stances. And then eventually it turns into, as they show the passage of time, them facing each other and doing the same hand motions to each other. And what he's teaching them is exactly what the movie showed earlier. He does every day. He like wakes up, he has his tea, and then there's this wooden dummy in his house that's like a log of wood with pieces protruding from it. And he goes in there and he does all these hand motions. And I remember the first time I saw him doing that, I was like, that's gotta hurt,
Yeah.
like hitting the wood with your elbow and your forearm. But it doesn't hurt the longer you do it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like when you get a barbell in your hands and everyone's like, oh, the hook grip's uncomfortable. Well, the more you do it, you'll stop noticing that sensation and it'll become normal. And then you can't imagine doing it another way. So, he's in there doing all these things. And the big lesson that I took from it was just mastering the basics. I remember when I saw that movie, specifically that scene and also the scenes of him training every day, he wasn't fighting someone every day. He like rarely fought unless he was happened to be challenged by someone and then he would wreck them, you know. But every day he practiced the basics. And this is when I was really heavily into tennis and trying to get really good at tennis. So, the drills that you learned in tennis class in college, you have your backhand and you bounce the ball and then you do the bounce ball and then you practice your serve and you go to, the wall where you just hit forehands and backhands to yourself back and forth. Like I used to do that. And that's the stuff that you would do before you played someone. It wasn't always about doing the sport part of it. You had to put in the miles on the road, so we were running all the time to get our cardio up. And then as you were running, you were visualizing like hitting winners and beating your friends. And then also doing all those little drills to like warm up and take the time to like, all right, can I get 50 in a row without, losing it
Right.
and having to chase it around? And it's what's funny is like that stuff actually worked. Like I went from being like not a very good athletic tennis player at all to like and not being able to beat my friends and only being able to be helpful like in doubles to now like catching up to them and beating them, and seeing the meltdown on the other side of the net that I caused, that's awesome. But it's like that movie, like it was like motivating because it's like this dude is like a master of masters and he's not going out there like the other guys or the upcoming masters who are just challenging him all the time.
Right.
And they're like, I don't understand why he beats me all the time. Like he wakes up and for hours, who knows how long, he's hitting this dummy thing, just mastering the basics. And that's how, I think that's how you get good at anything, right? You just have to practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
And even later in the other movies, he fights some of these other masters from other towns and he beats them. And you could see that they had like gotten sloppy, that they had just kind of been like, I'm the main dude, I'm respected. They stopped training and they also stopped doing the little things.
Right.
And the common thread throughout all the Yip Man movies is every movie almost starts with him hitting this dummy and doing the thing. And whenever he tries to get the villagers or a new student to start, they start with the same exact thing that he's doing. He never stops doing it. And I just think that's super cool.
Yeah. And it's good that he can get like a whole group to just follow him. And yeah, because sometimes you get those training scenes where the athletes will see that they're just doing the basics, like even like Karate Kid, where you think about like painting the fence and he's like, I'm not learning anything until it's like fully time to use it. But it's cool that he's able to get like the whole village because he's so respected and everyone knows that he's the best, that they'll just follow whatever he does. Like they're not even sure if this will really help, but they're just
Yeah.
continuing to do it.
And like as I'm watching it, I was watching it again recently, and I was like, I don't think this is going to help you defend yourself, but it could someday. And everything he's teaching them, at a certain point, they can continue doing it on their own.
Right.
Let's say they get separated from him or they get taken off to some prison or something. You can do this stuff anywhere and like stay fluid, stay flexible, and practice it. And then it's a lot of reps. Like they're doing tons and tons of reps. It shows the villagers, they're like, doing this work. They shuffle something, then they put down their shuffle and they do some of this stuff,
Yeah.
like they're just constantly practicing all day. And you can see how in the end of the movie, it pays off because some of them can actually like contribute to like fighting back. And it's just, tedious consistency. That's what training is sometimes. It's just the air squat. How good is your air squat? Practice it, practice. That's like the CrossFit equivalent, right? If you get better at your air squat and you improve it, and sometimes you look at someone's air squat like, that's perfect. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's not. It's really not, and there's so many ways to improve upon it. And so many other movements get better just by doing that. All of a sudden your squat snatch is better. Your box jumps are better. Like everything, like, cause that's the foundation, right? It's one of the foundational movements for a reason. And it's kind of the foundation of the foundation. And then if you look at it on the flip side of coaching, how good at you are teaching the air squat, well, that's the basics. Like if you get really, really good at teaching that, then that makes it a little bit easier to teach someone how to snatch.
Yeah.
Like it all trickles up. That's why, like so many times, I'm always asking you guys, what are the 5 points performance for the air squat? And we go over, how many times have we gone over that thing?
Yeah. Almost always.
A lot. A lot. It's like I said, if you're in the airport, I'm going to be in an airport tomorrow. Someone comes racing up to me. Oh, are you a CrossFit trainer? We have 10 people over here that need to learn how to squat. I got it. All right, here. You run over and like you can handle yourself in that situation because you've memorized and practiced the basics so much.
Yeah.
And it gives you confidence, right?
For sure.
I think that's it for my notes on that. Yeah, and I think that's the lesson from it, but I think also the lesson from it to master the basics, but then once you think you've mastered them, don't get complacent either, because that's when
Yeah.
you start to get sloppy.
Yeah.
I just love in that movie how the first one, the Japanese general watches Yip Man destroy 10 guys at the same time when he's really pissed because they killed his friend, and then he's like, "I'll still fight him. Yeah, I can beat him."
Hey, that's the confidence that we should all walk around with.
It is, and I love how the like that was kind of like the main fight scene, because when they eventually fight, he just gets destroyed.
Yeah.
It was the quickest, easiest fight in the whole thing. He's like, here's what I think of karate, and he destroys him. I think that was the simplest, easiest fight he had in the whole series, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. All right, so that's my number 3. Learn and master the basics.
So my number 2 is a double up. It's Creed 1 and Creed 2. So, but for different reasons. Creed 1, I'll go over quickly. I like the Creed 1 training scene because there's a lot happening. There's a lot that you kind of have to build on to create this relationship between one, to start a new series within a series already, the Rocky saga. But the Creed 1 training scene, Rocky is also dealing with like cancer at the time. So there's kind of this thing where Creed finally books this big fight, but he's dealing with and trying to help Rocky through cancer because he's kind of like in the stage of kind of giving up with everything. And Rocky finally goes, okay, like I'll fight this, but you still have to train. So the scene starts with them in the hospital, and Rocky pulls out his stopwatch and, has him shadow box, has him do push-ups, running up and down the steps,
Love how he's
and
got a
all of those.
stopwatch in his hospital bed.
Yeah, it was just in his pocket, and he's like, you know what time it is. Um, but it's the training, and the training scenes are intertwined with sometimes Rocky's at the gym with him, and other times he's not, because again, it's not like a straight road with him dealing with cancer. Like some days he feels better than others. There are moments where you can see they do a really good job of showing the scenes where Rocky's looking good, and then maybe the next scene he's looking sick again, and then looking good, looking sick again. And it's, as Creed's training is progressing and going through, there's still the ebb and flows of Rocky dealing with cancer in these scenes. And the kind of end of it, I think, is really cool too, because Rocky has the training scene where he's running through the streets and the people of Philly kind of are running behind him. And Creed has the scene in this one where it's kind of like the newer Philly, or like the Philly that we didn't see through Rocky, we get to see through Creed. Philly has a big like four-wheeler biker, like dirt bike kind of on the road type of culture. Um, and they see him like jogging through the street, and everyone's like, "Oh, are you going to see Rocky?" And he's like, "Yeah," and like he like beckons them all to like come along, and they're like riding, and it's really cool. They got like a Meek Mill song in the background, who's like from Philly as well. So
Imagine if the world really was like that, where it's like they knew what you're doing, and
yeah, so
so
it's really cool. They all like they're going with him. They're like popping wheelies on these ATVs and dirt bikes through the road, and he's like running, and like you see him like get faster and faster as he's running down the street. They get outside of Rocky's place, and he's like doing the shadow boxing and all that, and Rocky's able to like come out of the window and like wave at them, and they're all like cheering for him as well. Like, I like the scene because it's less about the athlete in this and more of like Rocky's triumph through like cancer and things like that, and the support that he has from the city still, and things of that nature. um, I also have Creed 2 in there because I feel like this is a more traditional training scene, um, and it's so close to Rocky 4 as well. Creed 2, he's also fighting a Drago, um, so that's coming into it as well, and they have a really cool piece of it where in the boxing ring, because Drago is such a strong opponent and they know like you're going to have to go toe to toe with him, where there's a really big guy in like this desert area where Creed is training, and they put a tire down, and both of them have to put a foot in the tire and just have to fight it out in there. There's no like moving around. You just kind of have to deal with it, and it's all about like just building his toughness really. And Drago's character is just this strong character, and they do the thing where they cut back and forth between the hero and the villain, and you can see that Drago's just beating up his sparring partners and everything like that, and you can see his aggression growing. But it's kind of like Russia now supports Drago as well, so you kind of see the Rocky 4 comparison where now he's in these bigger facilities and he's got the backing of the whole country, and Creed
and they
has
were
to go
poor at
back to
the
his
beginning of the
roots.
movie.
Right. Yeah. They were like in Siberia at the beginning of the movie. So now he's kind of getting pampered, and Creed was the champ who now has to go back to basics. And yeah. So I think that's really cool. Those movies also we watched 2 years ago at the Arnold
Yep.
before we all competed. And I think it did a lot for me watching those movies before competing. I probably competed before we saw, I think I only got to see the first one before I competed, but having everyone kind of watch those as we went through, because those scenes are great to me. So
Yeah, yeah, it was fun. We didn't watch the Creeds
we didn't get
to
to watch
this
three
past one.
due to many outside forces at the time.
Yeah, maybe next time. I
Right.
do like Creed 3. I
Yeah.
think that the montage, the at the end, the training thing where it's them as kids and everything, and in the ring. It was so well done.
Yeah.
It's a great trilogy. I think I don't know if they're going to make another one. What
Yeah,
the
I'm not
plan for that
sure.
is. I mean, eventually they'll be able to do. Michael B. Jordan is old, he's the old boxer now.
Right.
And Rocky's much removed, and like who's the next one going to be? So that'll be interesting to see kind of what they do with it.
Yeah.
I like in the in Rocky no Creed 1 where he's like how like motivating is that like where like Rocky's like I'm I'll fight this if you fight him or do that like he because like you got to put yourself in the context of it like this is Rocky
Yeah.
like you're living in the town where he is a living legend, he's a boxing legend, all that stuff like that's got to be pretty motivating from an athlete standpoint to be like yeah I'll run through a wall right now, that one you want, that one, how about that
Right.
one too, you know and it worked. He busted out the stopwatch. I do think it's so funny he had the stopwatch. It's almost like he knew.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Rocky statue in Philly?
No, I don't think I've been in Philly, but not for an extended amount of time. Like I've
Mhm.
definitely driven through, been there for like a specific thing and then left. But that's a place that I want to get to soon.
Yeah, it's awesome. You get to be by the statue, which is in the movies, take a picture with it. But then there's also the stairs. You
Right.
gotta you gotta run up the stairs.
Yeah.
Like stretch out your knees, make sure they're ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's like that's like one staircase. Like when I went there, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna run up it. You know, I don't know who would stop. Like you have to finish it. You
Yeah.
can't stop midway through and be like, all right, let me walk this flat part, or oh, I'm getting tired. You better keep moving those feet and pumping your arms and just get up there. Deal with it at the top,
Yeah.
Um, that's like another thing. It's like, no, that's like an impossible thing to like, oh, it's kind of like in weightlifting. There's like there's some like people out there where it's like, oh, I have to go under the bar now. Like
Yeah.
there's like if this person's out there watching, I have to try. Like if you're at the Rocky Steps, you don't just start jogging up it and then stop, because there are a lot of people there, and then you know you
Yeah.
just your ego won't let you do it. I think this is a good point to put in the honorable mention of all the Rocky movies.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I mean, for sure it should be on the list, but I think it's such a common one that it goes without saying, really. So maybe not on our list right now, but honorable mention for sure.
Yeah, because like I didn't have any of the Rockies on mine, and like of course when I was like just going through my head of like movies and training scenes, I'm like, oh, Rocky, like I could put. Then it's
Yeah,
like which Rocky,
exactly. Yeah.
like because everyone like if I was gonna pick one, see, man, I don't even know. Like, of course, there's the Rocky Four with Ivan Drago, and because like he's doing cleans, and then Rocky's lifting up the wagon full of rocks and running through the snow, and he's like doing more grittier training. But then there's also Rocky 3, which I don't think many people would pick, but I would pick the Clubber Lang. See, I'm always going for the
Mm,
villains, because like I always found that like super cool. Like Clubber was like hungry. He
yeah.
wanted the title. Rocky was like, again, he had gone soft. It's just like Mick said, like the fame, the fortune, the money, all that stuff. Meanwhile, you got that hungry guy out there, and there's always a hungrier guy. You know,
3 is the one where he's training with Creed,
um, yes, yes,
and
that's where,
they're doing the steps and getting his footwork to make him an actual good boxer, because as we know,
yeah,
Rocky is kind of not actually good at boxing.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like,
I think that's my favorite of the series as well, where they're like
yeah,
running on the beach and the crop tops and everything.
it's so ridiculous. The shorts are so short.
Yeah.
They're way too short. But it's like that movie, they're also good. Like 1 and 2 are kind of like one movie.
Right.
Hot like that. So that's like one connected story. And then Rocky 3, you know, yeah, people get on Mr. T, but like people don't realize how good he was.
Oh
Like
yeah.
in that character that he played in life and everything, like on the A Team and everything. Like you clearly didn't watch the show, and maybe that's why you're not a fan. You know, like I used to watch all those shows on like that channel that showed all the oldies. I can't remember
Yeah.
what name it was, but I love how Rocky's training with Apollo, and then you have Clubber Lang doing crunches, and like he's doing a million crunches, and he's so angry, and he's like so focused on the prize, and like I remember like that's why I started to do crunches is because of watching that movie. You know, my first experience ever exercising was in my bedroom when I was maybe 11 or 12 because like I realized that I was overweight and I didn't want to be overweight, and but I was also embarrassed to have people see me exercise. So what I would do is in my room I would just jog back and forth in the space in my room, like 10-foot shuttle runs just back
Yeah.
and forth. And I had dog food cans because we had a dog. So I would do curls with the dog food cans. And then I would do sit ups like I saw Clubber Lang doing it. And I remember one time my father, look, I had the door locked. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I must have been being too loud. And he was pissed. And he was like banging on the door, Jimmy, what the F is going on in there? You know? And it's because I was jogging and going around, and then maybe I'd started doing jumping jacks, and all of our rooms were really close to one
Yeah.
another. So it's like that was like one of my first times exercising, but it was because of what I saw him doing in that movie. I had my foot under my bed, and I was just trying to do what he was doing,
Yeah.
you know. But it's again, it's like it's crazy what some of these movies will motivate you to do,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure.
And that was like this is back way before CrossFit was putting out doing lifting water jugs. Like
Yeah.
I had dog food cans trying and that's all I knew: running, curls, sit ups.
Yeah.
Like at that age and what you see on TV, I had no idea what else to possibly
Yeah,
do.
for sure.
So yeah, the Rocky movies like just they'll pump anyone up.
For sure. Yeah.
My next one is not that type of pump up movie. It's Batman Begins. So Batman Begins, you know, specifically when Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is training with Ra's al Ghul, and who we don't know is Ra's al Ghul at the time. He's going by the name of Henry Ducard, and he is the main villain of the movie. And Ra's is trying to teach Bruce how to be a ninja, you know, how to be agile and have balance and move on your feet and you know, be able to be patient because Bruce was very motivated by anger. So
Yeah.
everything he was doing would be just rush in, and that's how you get killed. You know, so there's a couple things going on in like that montage. It's him and Raish sword fighting and talking on the ice. And then there's also Bruce like doing different things, like he's balancing on logs. You know, there's like pillars of logs, and he's fighting guys that are all around him, trying not to fall and stuff. So just all this like balance work and agility and being light on your feet and being patient, waiting for that guy behind you to come in instead of going to him and then getting hit by the other guy. You know, so I always just thought that was cool. And then some of the mindset stuff, you know, that Raish was telling Bruce. Again, it's I find, you know, lessons from the villains, you know. But the main lesson that I had down for this one was, you know, training is only part of the equation. And I'll read the quote. I wrote it down. Raish tells Bruce when he's trying to get him to control his anger. He says, "It wasn't your parents' fault that the tragedy happened, that you died." And then he says, "It was your father's." And like right there, like, oh man, like that would drive anyone crazy, right? Like, because initially he's like, "Oh, he's being nice. It wasn't your parents' fault. It was that criminal's fault." But he goes, "No, it was your father's. If he was a better man, he wouldn't have let it happen." You know, all this stuff. And he's like, "Would you let it happen now? Like you wouldn't do that." You know, he's like taunting him, and Bruce is getting super riled up, and he charges in, and Bruce says, I've had training, you know, so like it's different, right?" And then Raish yells at him. This is the part that motivates me. He says, training is nothing, will is everything, the will to act, you know. And that was something. So now this is when, like, getting out of tennis and getting more into powerlifting and eventually weightlifting for me. And it's like the training is a big part of it, yes, but it's also the mindset and like the willingness to do the thing. When it feels heavy in your hands, will you go under it, and I always tried to bring that to my lifting, where things feel difficult, to not react to them emotionally, like when the weight feels heavy, to not like change my technique, just stick with it, and then to do the thing, to act, And I know he's talking about Bruce's parents dying and stuff, but like I roped it into me snatching, or more specifically, clean and jerks. Like I missed my fair amount of snatches, but I didn't miss a lot of cleans often. Like that
Right.
thing where it falls, like my thing was like, I'm willing to, for some reason, I'm willing to die under this bar, and I will put it up here, and then I'll stand up with it or not. And especially like in meets, I think my lift miss percentage on clean and jerks was way low.
Mhm.
And if it was, there was a miss, it was always the jerk,
Yep.
but it was never going to be the clean. Like for some reason, I was like, taking this Batman Begins mindset into it. It's like the will to act. Like if I don't act now, I don't get a chance at the jerk.
Right.
And it's just a different thing than the snatch, this, because it's over and done with. But that was like that whole training scene is motivating to me, from like the mental toughness aspect of it, and that training is only part of it. You can do all the work you want with the weights or whatever it is, but if you don't train this too, how can you expect to perform?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I was like, does this one really fit? And I'm like yes, it does.
Oh, for sure.
It
Yeah.
has to fit. Let's see here. Yeah. That's it. Another note. It's also, before weightlifting and stuff, but like, who didn't want to look like Christian Bale in Batman too? Like
Yeah.
when he's just like jacked, and then you're like, maybe we'll do more curls and benching, now. And
100%.
that's I'm thinking now of the timeline. Tennis, 138 pounds. Batman Begins. Let's start powerlifting, and benching and stuff, and doing more sit-ups, because Christian Bale.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my third movie.
For my third, we're gonna start a shift.
Uh-oh.
So my third is actually Kung Fu Panda. So this one is very different for me, because this is probably not something I would have picked years ago, but I think now as doing more coaching and training other people, Kung Fu Panda kind of comes into mind more. So the training scene for this is his master is reluctant to even have him train, because he gets picked as the Dragon Warrior over all these people who have been training their whole lives. So he feels he doesn't deserve it. And then eventually he gives in and goes, okay, well, I wasn't really training him before. I was just trying to get him to quit. Now I'm really trying to train him, but it's not clicking. And he finally finds Poe's motivator, which is food. Like he sees him do like a like perfect aerial split to like find these cookies on the top of like the kitchen, and realizes like, oh, okay, I had to train you differently. And he says it to him as they begin this training scene, where he goes, I was trying to train you like the rest of the Furious Five, but you're not the Furious Five. So they get through this training scene where he's essentially withholding food from him the entire time and having Poe just fight him to try and get like dumplings or something like that. And you see how good Poe is as a fighter, where food is the motivator. And the reason I picked this scene is because now, as a coach, realizing that there are so many different motivators that people have. Obviously, I'm not like a I'll hold this bowl of food and then you run to me, like something like that. But
I mean, we could try it.
right. But even as we go through our lists, like we have these movies that kind of molded us in our athletic endeavors, but not everybody has that. Like I was always from a very young age, like watching movies with like cousins and, all the martial arts movies. And that I would say that that definitely has influenced me in the way that I look at training. Like I said, like I try to really make things like cinematic. Anytime I'm like in competition, I'm thinking like, how would this look in a movie? And that kind of, I can build off that, but not everyone has that. So just looking at the different athletes that you have, realizing that people have different motivations, different motivators, different things to really get them moving. Um, that everyone can be great, but you can't try to train everyone the same exact way.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. There's no one size fits all.
Right.
It's kind of like with queuing. What's the best cue that there could possibly be? It's the one that works.
Yeah.
So for Poe, it was food. That was like a cue. Versus with the Furious Five, that wouldn't work with Mantis. You know,
Yeah.
or Tigress or any of the others. So it makes perfect sense. I love how was it Sifu? Was that the his
Shifu.
master's name?
Yeah.
Shifu. He said, I can't train you like the others. So it's like as a coach, also like admitting it to yourself that like it's you can't do this, and it's not the athlete's fault or the student's fault. And there's a lot of coaches out there that wouldn't do it. Well, I
Yeah.
guess it just doesn't work for Miguel. He's never going to get it. Um, Instead of trying to find a different strategy to reach you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
And it's just a fun scene because as we get through, the rest of my list is also animated, and I feel like you can do a lot of cool things once it's animated. People
Yeah,
can do things that humans can't do. So, you know,
yeah, yeah. I'm noticing too. We have a lot of martial arts on our list.
oh yeah, for
Like
sure.
I had Yip Man. You can maybe kind of say Batman Begins is a little martial artist just because he's trained to be a ninja. My next one is heavily martial arts,
Yeah,
and then you just had Kung Fu Panda, and then you have another one coming up that I guess is kind of martial arts,
yeah,
maybe a
yeah,
little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I mean, who isn't motivated by food too, or
right.
some kind of a reward, like maybe it's not food, but something, you know, um, I don't know. We try to do it every now and then in the barbell club where it's like, all right, like if this then that, make a deal,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like with Alex. I don't think you were there when Alex was going for a 300-pound clean and jerk. This a couple weeks ago before shops meet. Yeah, were you there for that?
You told me about it.
Okay, yeah. And it's just like, all right, the deal was if you can make it, you don't have to do day four, But if you miss it, you have to do day four. And it's a win-win for me as a coach, but like and it's like a silly little thing, but like it motivated him to try. Or it's
Yeah.
like way back with the Shania when she's like, I don't want to do 5 sets of 5 on the back squat. What if I just do all 25 in one set? Yes, let's try that,
Hmm.
and she ended up, I think, getting 20. So
Yeah.
it's like, just is that okay? Yeah, maybe not every day. You don't want to be doing sets of 20 with your sets of 5 weight all the time, but like just something that would motivate her to try,
Yeah.
right? And she tried something that wasn't even on the game plan that day that most people wouldn't even pick. And a part of that's because she'd never experienced a 20 rep max back squat before. But I knew what was about to happen. But it's like, like why not? Let's try it. There's nothing wrong with trying it, different things to motivate people. Yeah. Any other thoughts on your this is your number 3, right?
Yeah. That was my number three. Yeah. Just it. This is my one that's really the coaching side of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are are all the rest of yours athlete side?
Yeah, I would say so. Or maybe the next one. It's kind of a mix. We'll get
Mix.
to it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my number 4 is Kill Bill Volume 2, where the bride trains with Pai Mei. And it's it's a good chunk of the movie where she's there training with him, and so there's this kung fu master named Pai Mei, and he is very, I don't want to say unreasonable, just he has very high standards. And one thing that always stuck out to me was like from a coaching standpoint is that there is no break in the standards. Like, and also he is not afraid. One, he would have killed her if he needed to, but not afraid to check egos or things like that, you know. And once you're coaching enough, you eventually run into like the egos and stuff. But there's right away in the scene where she goes up, you know, onto his little mountain there. He says, "Okay, we're gonna spar, and if you manage to strike one blow on me, I will bow down and call you master." And so one, that's a lot of confidence. You know, he's never met her before. He has knows nothing about her. And but he knows that how good he is. And this is clearly a beginner. He can probably tell just by the way she's standing, walking, and
Right.
talking. And so they start to spar all these things, and eventually gets to the point where, you know, he beats her down and he says, "I asked you to demonstrate to me what you knew, and you've done just that. Absolutely not a goddamn thing." You know, like he's just very harsh with her. He's like, "I wanted you to show me what you knew, and you've shown me nothing. You know nothing at all." And she was like I'm like, I'm awesome, you know,
Right.
like when she was going up there, like I've beaten people. She's an assassin. She's, you know, she's Bill's right hand person plus his lover, so of course she has all this confidence. And he's just like, I could have killed you from the moment we met, you know. And then she tries to hit him with a rock, you know. And so he, do you remember this scene where he grabs her arm, turns it around, and he's like, at any point I could tear this off. Like I
Yeah.
will just tear it off. And then he says, "This arm, it's my arm now. Like this is no longer your arm." And then in the next scene, he's like, "Since that's my arm, I want it strong." And then he starts having her hit the boards and stuff. And again, it goes back to tedious repetition of motion. And he's like, "I want you to be like, you know, just a finger's length away from this board and punch it until the point where you can go through it and break the wood." And she's like, "When am I ever going to need to do that thing?" And he's like, "What if your opponent is standing right in front of you? How will you put your hand through his chest?" You know, like he's, so it's like very extreme, you know, but like he's trying to teach her on like this is like the bare minimum. If you can do this when people are at range or other things, you'll have no problem, right? You'll be able
Right.
to do what I can do. And I think I can't remember if I have another part of that in here. Oh yes, when they're, so going back to his uncompromising of what he's trying to teach her, like, okay, this is just what she needs to do. No problem. We'll make this work for her. No, no, no. This is the way you do it if you want to get better. So I'm not going to let you compromise. When she's going to eat the rice, they're sitting at the dinner table eating bowls of rice, and her hands are so beat up and sore and everything that she can't grip the chopsticks. Plus, she probably has never really done them before, so the rice keeps slipping out. So she puts them down and gets a handful of rice, and he slams his hand on the table and like grunts. And then he grabs her bowl and he says, "If you want to eat like a dog," and he throws the rice on the floor, "then go eat like a dog." And then it's like that bowl of rice is tainted, Miguel. He gets her a new bowl of rice. And he's like, "Or you can try again. You can go eat like a dog with your hands on the floor. That's where that happens. Or you can pick up your chopsticks and try again." This is at the freaking dinner table, Miguel.
Yeah.
Like the training never stopped, but he's trying to teach her to be strong, to be uncompromising, to and you know, in a way, like that's how you become a champion. Like in her world, that's how you live. This is how
Right.
you don't die. But it's also how, you know, if you keep the standards really, really high, you become a champion. Like, "Oh, you're tired today." What does that mean? You know, so that's just I love that scene on all that. Kill Bill, the whole thing is one of my favorites. But that's one thing I took from that. It's like, of course, it's very harsh, but sometimes if you want to be a champion, or probably, yeah, if you want to be a champion, you have to have harsh, high standards. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's something that I say a lot too. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, there are different ways that you can train people. In this instance, it's like it is this master's way. Um, but that's because people go and seek him out. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like he's open to all and has to adjust for people. Like if you're going to him, this is what you want. So he's going to make sure that you get that. Um,
This is a
but
guy
yeah,
that doesn't work with the public. You know,
right,
like it
exactly.
wouldn't turn out very well. He'd kill a lot of people.
But there are a lot of things that I've changed in my training. Like even if we're just picking up the barbell, okay, if I'm picking up the barbell, here's how I'm going to pick it up. Because if we're doing presses, I'm going to pick it up almost as if I'm doing a clean, because that's an extra rep that I can get. I can pick
Yeah.
it up loose and all of that, but how does that really transfer over as I go along? So yeah,
And you've heard me say that a million times. You know, even now with you guys being so experienced, you'll still, if we're going over a complex, you'll still hear me tell you guys, pick it up to bring it to the hang from your start position. Don't just bend over and
right.
pick it up, because that rep did nothing for you. You
Yeah.
know, um, that's one of my big pet peeves. Or when someone's new, like, yes, I know the hook grip is difficult, but we have to be uncompromising here right now. Because if it's like, oh, okay, it hurts your thumbs, we'll do it another day. Well, another day is never going to happen, because the athlete will keep choosing the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
But then what have I done? I've set them up for failure 6 months later, when they're not able to get, that heavy weight or perform the way they want to or they should be. And now we have to go back and add the hook grip back in. And you know how hard that is to add the hook grip back in later?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it's like, do it in your formative times. That way you don't have, it's set. It's another thing checked off the list. And think about how many times you've practiced it, you've adjusted it, you've practiced maybe losing it but then getting it back. Like, if that's all part of the skill. That's kind of like eating the rice with your hands versus chopsticks.
Yeah.
you know um do you want to be a CrossFitter or a weightlifter? Then go over there. Go,
Yeah.
go over there to that room. But it's I think it's definitely okay as a coach to have that mindset, especially with the basics, building the foundation. So it comes
Yeah.
back to that yip man thing. It's like, yes, the hook grip is difficult, but it's just what you got to do right now.
Right.
Or power snatches versus squat snatches. That's another
Hmm.
thing. We don't really power snatch too much in barbell club. We always go for the full thing, and then when we do, it's for a very specific reason. Yes, we could be better at power snatches. I'd say as a club, we're not very particularly skilled at power snatches or power cleans. But that's just because we practice the full lifts so much. Glenn Penley used to talk about, when you're training beginners for the first time, don't let them power snatch, because the squat snatch is going to be a better teacher. When
Yep.
you get to the bottom and you drop it, there's a reason why. On the power snatch, you can get away with so much. You can just
Yeah.
cheat it. There's no learning experience there. And then they don't transfer into one another too well, on a sense of, like, all of a sudden you're going to be able to be squat snatching. No, you've been landing with your feet too wide. All these things. It'd be better to try to stop the bar higher and miss the power snatch because you accidentally squat snatched, than the other way around, to power snatch it
Right.
when you were intently trying to squat snatch it. So yeah, it's that's what this reminds me of, on the most extreme level possible. There's also another quote in here, right at the very beginning, at the bottom of the mountain. The bride is talking to Bill. He drops her off for training, and she says, "When will I see you again?" And he says, "When he tells me you're done." And then she says, "When will that be?" And he says, "That, my dear, depends entirely on you." And like, he told her right off the bat, "This is all your responsibility."
Yeah.
He's gonna. I already told you he's gonna be brutal. He doesn't like women. He doesn't like Americans. He doesn't like a list of things. He gives her a list of things that this old man at the top of the mountain really, really doesn't like. And plus, he's also told her the stories of like that guy's history of like
Yeah.
when he's walking through villages and some guy didn't bow to him. And he was a part of some White Lotus clan, and he brought his clan to that village and they killed everybody because he didn't show him any respect, you know. And that could just be like a legend thing. Maybe it didn't really happen, but that's he's telling her this is the guy you're going to go meet. Like
Right.
he trains Olympians. He's not ready for your bullshit or wants your bullshit at all, you know. And he tells her no talk back or questions and stuff for at least the first year or so. He's got to warm up to you.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories. I believe it's Donnie Schenkel. When you join the gym as a beginner weightlifter, you're not really allowed to ask questions. And that it's like if you're asking questions, you're probably overthinking things, right?
Hmm.
You're thinking about things too much versus receiving coaching. He told you to jump and put the bar over your head. And then you're like, well, when I do that, does this happen? Blah blah blah. And like it's like just jump and put the bar over your head. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to tell you what to do next. Okay. Now when you jump, do this, you know, whatever it may be. Like sometimes when people ask too many questions, they're not receiving coaching. They're receiving answers that they're searching for on something that they have no understanding about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a difficult thing, and you can start to see when athletes start to. Um, it's more prevalent, I think, these days because you can't open up social media without being inundated with a million videos on like, hey, Miguel, you want to get your jerk technique better? Do
Yeah.
these 5 exercises, you know, and then you go back to your coach and you're like, I want to do these 5 exercises. And it's like, do you even know what those 5 exercises do? That's not even for you. You just need to practice the main movement, you know, to tedious consistency, you know,
Hmm.
and then eventually you add in those other things, you know.
Right.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? On not asking questions or not being allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, I think there are different types of asking questions as well. Um, like even you can tell kind of in tone as well. Like there's a difference in here's what I'm telling you to do. Before you even do it, you're asking me what this is going to accomplish or what next. Do it first, and then potentially you can ask a question. Because sometimes just doing it will answer your question. You'll
Yeah.
see if you do what I just asked you to do, you'll feel the difference or you'll see what we're working towards. And yeah, I mean, there's asking questions maybe at the end of your session as a genuine, like, this was really interesting today. What are we trying to accomplish? What would you like to see from me? Those questions I think are different than like, all right, here's what I want you to do. Why? What's that going to do? Do it first, and
Yeah.
then you'll see.
I've experienced like, especially like weightlifting, it's almost like you're asking a question for two things: a stalling mechanism on not doing what you came here to do, and also as an excuse thing that you're slowly building. Well, all right, I just don't get it. So that's why it's not happening, you know,
Yeah.
versus like, okay, like, no, you just need to practice it more. And then we're going to hold the bottom because you need more flexibility, you know, whatever it may be, you know, it's almost like at a certain point, questions should be earned, you
Hmm.
know, versus someone first starting off, you know, like we had within recent months someone who like just started, you know, and I remember they were asking a lot of questions, but like what they were doing is they were delaying me on some of my coaching
Hmm.
and they were getting less reps. And as a coach in that situation, I just have to be more direct, like, and use less words for them to hang on. I've found that that's like a tactic to fight against this is like the more you speak, the more you open for things for interpretation or to have a question come
Yeah.
up.
Yep.
So it's like, hey Miguel, we're gonna jump and land. It looks like this. All right, when I say go, I want you to do that. You know, like however quick and simple I can keep it. Or like, all right, Miguel, we're gonna do the snatch, and now you're gonna bend your knees, you're gonna push through your feet and extend your ankles. you're going to pull the bar close by engaging your delts, and then you're going to turn it over with your external rotators, and then you're going to punch it out and whatnot. Like, do you see how that could lead to a lot of questions? They're like, how do I know how to even do all that? It's like, just say it as simply, as quick as possible, and get them moving. Right. Because the movement is a language too. So do your talking with movement, whether it be demoing and then having them go, and then add in those little things. And I think from a coaching standpoint too, if early on you focus on the nuance of the movement versus the big gross things, that will also confuse people and lead to questions. So like, let's say if you're teaching someone how to snatch for the first time and you're focusing on releasing the hook grip, at this point, who cares? But if you start talking about the little tiny technical things, that you might say to a more intermediate or advanced athlete, you're going to confuse the whole thing. They don't need that yet. They need the big gross movements, jump and catch, get A to B. Let's just start there. And then you can start to fine tune it and rope it in. And if you start with a PVC pipe and the bar gets out here a little bit, or it's not as close as you want to, once you start to add a barbell into the equation, simply adding the weight might solve the problem for you. You don't have to say anything. I remember in on-ramp, I used to not tell people certain things because I knew once we get to the next step, it might go away. Yeah. So I would just delay saying certain things that, like, if you saw someone snatch for the very first time and it was crazy, you might want to go in there with every little thing. But it's like, no, we don't need to worry about that right now. It's kind of like if you're teaching the air squat. All right, when I say down, you squat, up, you stand. And all I want you to focus on right now is keeping a nice upright posture. And you see the knees come in and you come on over there. Oh, you got to get your knees out. Well, you didn't tell them that that's what we were doing as well. Like, you demoed it, but right now I told you, Miguel, to focus on keeping your chest up. And then I cue 5 other points of your body that aren't the chest. That's confusing too. Yeah. Because then they're going to be like, how do I push my knees out? Now you're having a conversation about squatting instead of squatting.
Yeah.
Instead, on the next one, if I see your knees are coming in, all right, now, Miguel, you're doing a great job keeping nice upright posture. Let's keep doing that. On this next set of reps, I want you just to focus on pushing your knees out. And then I'm going to put my hand here. I want you to feel the pressure. I want you to push against my hand. And then now we're on it. And then now we're both on the same page. Instead of me putting you on page 1, and then I jump to page 15 with little things that you don't need to worry about. I'm telling you to grip the floor with your toes, and like maybe things that are too advanced for session number 1.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of, like, that's my arm now and I want it strong. So I'm going to start using that. All right. So that's my number 4. What's your number 4?
Number 4 for me is Hercules, the Disney movie.
I'm glad you specified. There's a difference.
I think because this one it's really interesting, actually. I was looking back at it. One, from a purely animation standpoint, it's like he's Hercules, so he already has the super strength, but he doesn't look it. He's still like a stringy kid, and by the end of this training scene, he's like completely jacked. But what I really like about this scene is it's pretty meta if you think about it. Because he goes to Phil, the satyr, to train him. Danny
DeVito was the perfect choice.
Yeah, and he's at this point, Phil has already trained a bunch of heroes, and they never actually turned out the way that he wanted because of Greek tragedy, like how the storytelling in Greek mythology. So he's talking about all these guys that he's trained, and he's going through like the classic stories that we know from Greek mythology, and Achilles with his heel and all of these things. And so they, within this training scene, it also has an original song, as a lot of these Disney movies do, which is added points. If you
is that the "I'll Make a Man Out of You" song?
Well, no, that's Mulan.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking different one.
Right. But this one, a lot of it is not only like, okay, you're training, you have the strength, but for me to turn you into a hero, you also kind of have to have the theatrics of it. You have to have the charisma of a hero. So within the training, you see like not only is he able to do these things, he also has like a flair to it. Uh, Through this training, like he's got the arrows getting shot at him and he catches it on his shield. And when he turns it to the camera, there's an H on the shield for Hercules. And,
I
you
love how
know,
there's a camera too.
yeah, it's like everything's like super cool, but that's a part of the hero business in this movie and kind of like the meta commentary on uh, Greek tragedy and Greek myths that um, it wasn't enough for Hercules to be strong. Phil had to teach him how to be a hero, which is like symbolic as well.
Like kind
So,
of like act the part, like, you
right.
know, like it's almost like you have to believe you're the champion before you become the champion.
Yeah. Because I mean, he had the skills. It's like you also have to have the look and the flair, and people have to believe it. Like that's part of being a hero is that you have to kind of like inspire people as well.
Yeah. And it's like if you only just rest on the ability, but you're not like living the lifestyle, so to say, then that might leave you open to not achieving the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Like you could look like a professional bodybuilder, but then if you're not like doing like living the lifestyle, like when you see like those guys waking up at 4 a.m. and drinking protein powder and stuff like that, like it's only going to get you so far.
Yeah.
It's I would say if we were doing like a top 5 Disney movies, that's easily top 3 for me. Hercules.
Yeah. It Hercules has great songs in it as well.
Yeah.
Like really, really good ones.
Great songs. James Wood as Hades, classic. I remember I saw it at the movies when it came out, and we got McDonald's that day, 20-piece chicken nugget, and I got the Frost Titan. Um,
Oh, really?
Yeah, because somewhere I might still have all those toys, but
Hmm.
I had the Hydra, I had the Frost, I had Hercules himself, I had Meg, and I might have had Hades. I
Hmm.
really wanted Pain and Panic, but I
Right.
could never. You could never, it always sucked too when you went to McDonald's and you got a repeat toy. It
Yeah.
was almost like a waste of a McDonald's trip. Man, the memories.
Yeah.
I do think it's cool. Like you said before, that this one's like a dual athlete coach thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I've done it so long now. I can, uh, uh, what's the word I want to say? Not emphasize. Relate, relate to Phil on like the ones that like didn't live up to their potential.
Right. Where it's like you were so close. If you had just,
Yeah, there's a couple in my head on both CrossFit and weightlifting side where it's like, man, if you just would have like stuck it out and like done the stuff, like there's some that life took them away, you know. There's not much you can do about that. There's others that just kind of got lazy. And then there's others that, kind of like what I've been saying, they wanted to focus just on the advanced stuff and stop doing the little things. And that's when injuries happen as
Mhm.
well, So like I see where he's coming from on his frustration. It's like, oh, we could have been that. And I think every coach at some point has those things. Like I remember, when I used to talk to Penlay, he had many, and he's like, I thought that was going to be the one. And when he was talking about the one, he was talking about Team USA in the Olympics.
Yeah.
That like because at the point he was at, the only thing he hadn't done was an athlete to the Olympics.
Mhm.
And so he would talk about that. Like there were some that he thought were gonna go, and just there's a disappointment for the athletes, but there's also another side of that too. Like when you're the coach, like
Yeah.
I've not experienced anything on that level before. I imagine it really sucks. And then there's the whole thing with Donnie Schenkel thinking that they got on Team USA and then it got like taken away at the
Mhm.
last second. I think that's almost worse.
Yeah.
Where like yeah, Miguel's on Team USA. He's going to the Olympics. Oh my god, and we have the party and everything, and then we get a phone call from USW and they're like, actually,
Yeah.
we're gonna take that other guy. That would really suck. So
Mhm.
I don't know that pain and hardship. I hope not to have to. But I can definitely see that side of it as well with like the athlete part of it. I'm like, you have to act the part.
Yeah.
How do you is that part of your, just performative thing on like acting the part? Like,
Yeah, I think that's, again, I think that's part of it. It's like, yeah, you can do all the things, but I think within yourself as an athlete, it helps to believe that you're doing something other than just repetitively. It's a mixture of, like, we keep on talking about the basics as well, but beyond just doing the basics, you have to believe that you yourself are this person already.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier when I'd be out running, on the road, outside of town, like with all the hills and stuff, trying to get better at tennis. When I would hit a hill and things burned and whatnot, it's like, all right, I didn't make it up at yesterday, but I'm gonna try to make it up today. And then you're just kind of like thinking about playing the sport, like playing points in your head and like seeing yourself winning. I know like right now, like everything I do is centered around like training for the level 4 at the end of the
Yeah.
year. And it's like, all right, like I already know like I've been doing this for a while and I have my set of abilities, but now like I almost have to like act like I
Yeah.
see the people on at the seminar staff and stuff act, because like they do act differently.
Hmm.
And it's like, there's some of them that I might be better than they are, and there's others that are clearly better than I am, but it's like I don't act that way. And like
Yeah.
not all of that is like my style too, like, so
Hmm.
it's like acting the part and walking the part, but also keeping like who I am intact with it, you know, to that's what I think will help. So like this is kind of like part of that. But like when I'm swimming, I'm thinking about like I'm putting like whenever I do like long cardio, you kind of like fantasize a little bit, you zone out. I don't know, do you do that?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like it's kind of like with running, but like when I'm swimming, it's just like 30 minutes of going back and forth. So I'll visualize myself in the room at that gym, and like this is the workout. We're doing back squats. Well, what would my lesson plan be? And I'm lesson planning in my head. What would I want the warm up to be? What am I going to say at the board? How am I going to organize the people? All these things. And I know what the gym looks like because I've looked at it on social media. So it's like I could either just be thinking about nothing or Game of Thrones or The Boys, because these shows are on now. Or I could be like putting in the mental reps for that thing, you
Right.
know. And I don't know. I think that will help a little bit.
Yeah.
Always used to help. So we'll see. Any closing thoughts on Hercules
No, I think ready for our last picks here.
as picks? I out of all the movies now, like I want to watch Hercules the most. Like if I was gonna like pick one to watch right after this, I would totally watch Hercules.
Yeah.
My final one is maybe of no surprise, but The Empire Strikes Back. You
Hmm.
know, the show is The Barbell Strikes Back. The inspiration is obviously the movie The Empire Strikes Back. There is a movie poster right in front of me that is signed by the Yoda guy, who is the guy that designed the puppet for Yoda in the movie. And when I went on a cruise to St. Martin, he has a museum there. So I bought one of the movie posters and he signed it for me. And then I have another picture that he signed of him working on the Yoda puppet. But it's a top 3 favorite or top 5 favorite movies of all time. And it also happens to have one of my favorite training scenes where Luke Skywalker is training with Yoda in the swamps of Dagobah. And he's like got him on like a little backpack. He literally looks like a backpack.
Yeah.
And he's running through the forest and he's swinging on vines, climbing up them, doing flips over logs and rocks. And he's also like holding handstands and like mentally focusing and stuff like that. And I was realizing that that's one of the first times in my life I ever saw a handstand. Like
Right. Yeah.
like the I saw the movie in like the early 90s or really late 80s when I was like 4 or 5, somewhere's right there. And that was probably the first time I think maybe a lot of people ever saw a handstand.
Hmm.
But I remember thinking that it looked cool. And now when I watch it, I'm like, can I see the wires going on in there? You know, he actually holds a pretty solid handstand. You know,
Yeah.
his feet are apart like this. I would tell him to get his feet in, you know, and then it would be even tighter. But his arms look okay, and he's able to have a conversation while he's up there. But that's that the training montage and the whole thing with Luke and Yoda is when that famous quote happens. It's like, try not, do it or not. There is no try, you know. And again, it's like kind of like that uncompromising, no excuses thing. It's like you either did or you didn't. Like
Hmm.
there's no other reasoning behind it. You know, you can't say, all right, I didn't, but you know, it was hot outside and you know, I just wasn't feeling it that day and I forgot my banana and whatnot, you know, whatever. It's like, no, you either you did it or you didn't do it. There's no, and it's like, you know, that's like the first time I ever heard that lesson. And of course, it doesn't resonate with you when you're 5, but since it's one of like the most well-known movie quotes probably ever, right? Like it's something that follows you throughout life, and then
Yeah.
as you get into training, it's also another thing where it's like, yeah, no excuses. Like you didn't hit depth on a squat. You know, it's like you either did it or you didn't. There shouldn't be like an essay after it. And I feel like today it kind of goes the opposite, where everybody has to have an explanation on
Hmm.
something that happened. Like you see it all the time now. Athletes will post on their social media, like when they have a bad performance, there's like 5 paragraphs that I don't know. I've never read any of those in full. It's like too long, didn't read, you know? Better luck next time. And I don't know. I think that I kind of would like to think that the champions of old wouldn't have done that. You
Hmm.
know, like even the fake ones. I don't think Rocky would have posted on social media a whole reason on why he lost to Clubber Lang. He was like, I just wasn't ready. I didn't do it. You know,
Yeah.
like there's no excuse. Well, you know, Adrian, we had a fight that morning. The dog was sick, and my mind just wasn't into it. Like it's, I don't know. Like there's just the mindset isn't there, and like so like I've never been one to carry that with me. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't post on social media, well, I didn't do this or that, or I had bad sleep that night. It's like I just didn't have it that day.
Yeah.
Miguel was just better than me that day. You know, I watched Andre Agassi versus Pete Sampras in another final. I've been watching so much old tennis, and he said he said he just played better than me today. That was it. He didn't give a list of excuses. So I don't know. This is just that's what that quote
Yeah.
makes me think of.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole separate. I mean, I think a lot of old champions are lucky that there was no social media, or else I
Yeah,
feel like our view of them would be tarnished, because I feel like a few of them, if they did have the opportunity, would be like, you guys don't even know what happened. Like,
who's won? Who do you think would be the worst?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot. I mean, Tanya Harding, you know.
I could see. I mean, I could see that. That seems like a different, more volatile
But I
situation.
mean, there are a lot of cases where I'm like, I think they're just lucky that all they had was the post interview, maybe, where
Yeah,
you just have a microphone in your face for maybe 30 seconds, and that you don't have, because you really have no peace currently as an athlete. Like, you can't you can't lose something and then post a picture even a month later, because then people in the comments are going to be like,
the
what
comments.
happened all this time ago? Like, you have to somewhat
Well,
explain.
look at back to Rocky, Apollo Creed. Remember?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
his team was like hyping him up and everything. And he says, he was better than me. Like I won, but I didn't beat him. Like
Yeah.
I love that scene. Like one, Carl Weathers, rest in peace. Such great acting. Like he didn't have to bring it that hard to Rocky, but he did, and but it's like it was so beautifully written. It's like he's like, yeah, he won the decision, but he knew he didn't beat Rocky,
Right.
you know. And that's why they had the rematch. He's like, it's not done yet. We have to keep going.
Hmm.
And there wasn't his crew were the ones that were giving him all the excuses.
Yeah.
And I think that's something too to think about as a coach. You know, you could maybe send an athlete down the wrong path on like imagine if you when you didn't win the state championships last year If I was like, well, I gave you like 5 things on like why you didn't do it, versus like
Yeah.
Timothy Luistro made his lifts, you didn't.
Hmm. And
What?
even in training, there are some times where, we have our like ratings for the day. And sometimes I know like maybe to even like make us feel better, you're like, well, maybe you just didn't get enough sleep. And I'm like, no, everything was fine. It's just not a good day today, you know?
Yeah.
And I kind of find solace in that, where a lot of times mentally, what I do before a lift is like, or you may have even heard me say it out loud to other people, but I'm like, you're either going to make it or you're not. There are really two options here. So
50-50.
yeah, I'm like, either way, it's fine. Like that's really it. You make it or you don't, and that's just all there is.
Yeah. And when you look at the ratings too, it's like, all right, maybe you didn't get enough sleep today, but like, are you going to get enough sleep tomorrow?
Right.
Like the we have the answer right here. If you would just do like to me, like the sleep is like it's like the tedious consistency thing. That's like a little thing that you have, for the most part, full control over. Like
Yeah.
you don't even have full control over the barbell. Like and I don't say that in like it's like you just said 50-50. Like we're gonna do our best, but we don't know if we're gonna be able to connect all the dots.
Yeah.
But being like, all right, it's 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Yeah, I'm going to go to bed because I have these things I'm trying to do versus like, no, I'm going to be up and watch, another episode of The Boys because they just dropped all 3 of them, uh, earlier this week, or I'm going to stay up and scroll on my phone. Like those are your decisions.
Right.
And we had, and you just said what your decision was. Oh, I rated my sleep at 2. Well, it's like, hey, you made that decision and look what it's done for you.
Hmm.
It's still black and white. You could have lied on the thing.
Right.
Could have said I had 4 sleep, and then be like, oh, well, then yeah, now we really don't know what's going on.
Hmm.
It's good that no one lies on them. I think.
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
see what the benefit would be. Yeah.
there is no benefit other than like I guess lying to yourself, which
Yeah.
is an easy thing to do. I think it's better to talk yourself up and go the Hercules route, and like act the part than to lie to yourself on
Yeah.
like why things don't happen. And I think that's what sometimes some of those posts make me think of. It's like you're just like not confronting the truth. Like you could have stayed on the pull-up bar, but you chose to get off of it. Like you decided to do singles when Matt Frazier next to you did sets of 5. I remember that the workout, the standard from the
Yeah.
CrossFit Games, Noah Olson's wearing the shirt and he beats Frazier off the rings for the muscle ups, and they go to the snatches and he goes into that default competitor mode of hit it, drop it, hit it, drop it, hit it, drop it. And Matt Frazier came up right behind him, grabbed that bar, sets of 5. And it's like, yeah, he wanted to be the champion again.
Right.
It's like you could have, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that if Noah would have won that because he's wearing the white shirt, he would have been the games champ that year, right? I'd have to go back and
I'm
look.
not sure on how the points really teetered out
Yeah,
towards the end, but yeah.
that'd be something to look at. But like, let's say if he if he beat Frazier on that workout, the standard 30 clean and jerks, 30 ring muscle ups, 30 snatches, 135, I think, on the bar for both of them. So Grayson, Isabel, and 30 muscle ups. If he beat Frazier off the rings, and all he had to do last workout, the whole thing, is just do grit through those 30 snatches. I don't know why he didn't, especially when Frazier comes up behind him and just kicks it into turbo go. It's like, did you want to win? Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
What do you think happened there?
I mean, it depends. I mean, yeah. I mean, everyone has their capacities. There is the will of it all and the pride of it all that can give you a little bit more, but maybe it's also a hope that, okay, he has to chase me. He is the one that has to put in work. Maybe this is a mistake that he's making to try and get those extra points, and maybe he blows up later. Maybe this is him trying to get me to make a mistake. I mean, there's a lot there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and also if you think about it, like too, it's like you are what you do. So if that's how you do every workout, and you
Right.
never like experience threes or fives or like redline it, like we talked about on the last episode, you're just going to default to that. Versus, I
Yeah.
bet you Frazier trains like one, he trains nasty. Like he was just like going after it super hard. So he's also not afraid of what that blown up pain feeling is going to have or feel like, because he does it regularly.
Yeah.
He's like, no, today I'm going to try to go unbroken, or I'm not going to be like, all right, I'll drop it every three. I'm just going to start doing snatches until I can't, drop it, shake it out, and then go do more snatches.
Yep.
Versus like everybody is so highly regimented on like singles, breathe, breathe, singles, breathe, breathe. But it's like, does that win you the championships? I don't know. This might be an example of where it doesn't, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think the singles breathe, breathe is what Rich did really to become a champion, where you've seen some events where because other people were going for fives or going for threes, they blew up. And because Rich had you know, a single, take a breath, go back for another single, and then slowly chips away at them. It's different mindsets, and different people can thrive on whatever works for them. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think in the moment, last 30 reps, final workout, you've got him on the ropes. He has to chase you, make him chase you more, and just why not swing for the fences and go for it,
Yeah.
versus going out the way he did, Because, as soon as Frazier started to move his bar in front of him, it was done.
Yeah.
Like, because like he wasn't going to. He's like, well, I guess he's the games champ, like, but you would like to see the like not acceptance of it. He
Yeah.
rolls it forward, like, oh no, you don't. Here comes
Mhm.
10. I don't care if my arms fall off. I'm gonna carry it over and keep going, like, because it's 135. It's light for those guys. Like it
Yeah.
really is. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering that whole sequence, but that's what's always stuck out to me. So I might have to watch it again.
Yeah.
All right, so that was my final one. Do or do not. There is no try. No excuses. It's pretty black and white. People like to make excuses these days, but I think we'd all be better if we didn't. And handstands are cool.
Yeah.
One of my favorite exercises to teach. Actually, it is my favorite exercise to teach. What's your favorite exercise to teach?
I don't know if I have one yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I need more.
Yeah.
To really
that's
see.
completely
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I love, because like all the little drills and I just love it. It's so, and when you get someone on the wall for the first time, it's just a cool thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Last movie, Miguel.
Last one.
Number 5.
This is the one that I think is the best one. I think objectively is the training scene in Mulan. Again, another original song, I'll Make a Man Out of You, which again, I think is arguably one of the best original Disney songs that there is. There are a lot of good ones.
It's been in my head all this whole
Yeah.
time. That's
And
why I said it earlier. I got it confused with the Hercules song.
Yeah. And it's just, the scene is just great. You get the ragtag group as you do a lot in these situations, and yeah, they're not doing well at all. And then there's so many symbolic pieces, like the getting the arrow from the top of the log that's all the way up, and everyone trying, and them being slow on the run, carrying the buckets, and just everyone is given up on them. And then Mulan finally gets the arrow down, and the whole team kind of rallies together with a great song in the background. Everyone's able to run and do everything that they need to. And it's just great group training to see everyone get their pieces, with getting better at shooting the rockets and running, and uh, yeah, everyone just does a great job. And it's Mulan is such a great movie as well, just to see everyone. And I feel like I could also climb that log. I feel like if you gave me a couple chances, I could figure it out also.
All right, we need to find a place. There's got to be a place that has something similar to that. We got to find that.
Yeah, I think I could do it. Give me a couple tries.
You have to use a strap, right? To
Yeah, it's like two weighted, almost like, yeah, it's like on a strap. They're almost like medallions, but like huge.
it's
And they
like a
use that.
telephone pole, and you use that thing, right?
Yeah, I think it was the problem was everyone was, it's essentially a weight. So people were like carrying them, and Mulan is the first one to like use it to climb up.
Figuring out different strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
she
but
went the
I
more
don't even,
skillful route.
yeah, I don't even know if there's not much you can even say about the Mulan training scene. It's just it's like the training scene.
Well, it's highly motivating, and I think
Yeah.
too, the cool part about it, is like you said earlier, what her actions did to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And we've experienced that plenty of time in barbell club, where everyone's having a rough day, but then you just need someone to break through and try to shift the momentum in the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll go around and we'll have miss, 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 but then we just need someone to break the cycle and get a make. Jennifer connects with a great snatch, boom, we're back in it as a team. And then you can try to use that energy to keep going, and then like the next person makes a lift, and now everyone's cheering a little more, like the energy needs to shift versus like we're losing the battle. The barbell's
Yeah.
winning right now. And so I think that's a cool aspect of it, and that's what it reminds me of. And it's just like, you know you want to look to yourself for motivation, and to you keep yourself going, but sometimes you have to look across the room and be like, hey, like that's going to drive me to do more. It's
Yeah.
like
100%.
back in the day in CrossFit, you see Donna in front of you, and she's chugging along, and you're like, Donna's not putting it down. I'm not putting it down.
Yeah.
Donna's in her 80s. Like that's one of the beautiful part about CrossFit. It's like you could be behind Donna with 225, and Donna has 35 pounds on a bar for deadlifts, and you see she keeps going, and you're like, I'm not putting it down, and then you're trying to beat her, like. And it's like not like that it's a competition, but like that drives you to do more. It brings out the best in you.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like an example of CrossFit in the Mulan thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But great movie.
Yeah,
Excellent movie.
great movie,
Might
great,
rewatch also sometime
great
this
song.
weekend.
If we wouldn't get horribly attacked by Disney, that could be the theme of the show.
Yeah.
Just play that at the top. But yeah, that wouldn't go well with copyright and
Yeah.
all that stuff. But all right. Well, any closing thoughts on your top five?
I would just overall say like the training montage is great. If you need motivation before a training session, or something, these movies are a great way to get there. Um, it'll even impact you if you're just sitting on the couch and you see a great training scene. You might hit a couple push-ups afterwards. Who knows? But yeah, no, it's great. It has definitely formed me as an athlete growing up with like these type of movies, and the motivation from it, the mindset that I kind of pulled from these little scenes. So yeah.
Yeah. You don't realize how some of these things impact you until you start to really like look at them, and like think to yourself, what did I get out of this when I
Yeah.
first saw it? And then like also pick apart the aspects of it that like really drove you, like I remember like the what Rach says to Bruce, about it was your father's fault. Like that just like really like I was like, I can't believe he just said that. And it's like that would drive me crazy, but like also like learning to control your emotions,
Hmm.
because like I've certainly been there like earlier in life, like you just fly off the handle and like you react to things instead of being patient. So it's like not only just like in training, but like in just like life overall, you can learn a lot of great lessons from these things.
Yeah.
Miguel, any last honorable mentions on a movie that didn't make your list? We lumped in all the Rockies, of
Yeah.
course.
Real quick, I won't even get into the scene, but a great one also is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, when they finally get the new group of the Order of the Phoenix, and they're training all the cool spells. That's a great training scene as well.
Yep. That's a good one. It's funny, it's like you don't think of Harry Potter as training, but like training is like it's so different. Like we have such a variety of things, and not many of the things that we talked about involved being in a gym.
Yeah, yeah,
Like there's some gym elements, but like it's swords, it's kung fu, it's
yeah. It's their
all these things.
specific thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say honorable mention. There's like that scene in Commando where Arnold is like carrying the log and
Yeah.
stuff and doing manual labor, and you're just like, that's like when like you want to do curls and
Mhm.
be jacked like Arnold. I suppose you could say pumping iron because it's fiction. Like it's like dramatized, so like that of course like does a lot for people. But I think my from a coaching standpoint, my like biggest honorable mention would be Inside Out, since Inside Out 2 is coming out right now.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah,
With it's like it's Pixar, right? Or is it
yeah.
Disney?
It's Pixar. Well, yeah, same thing.
It's this little girl, all of her emotions inside of her head are anthropomorphized, and they're given characters and stuff, and the main character is Joy, and it's like she's losing joy from her life, because her parents are getting a divorce, and Joy runs into the kid's imaginary friend Bing Bong. Remember Bing Bong? um, and at some point they fall into a pit of despair where old memories and things kind of die away. It's like where your childhood dies, right? Fades away. And they're trying to get out of it. And if they don't get out of it, then joy will fade away. And this little girl will have a joyless life. So they're like trying to ramp up and get out of the pit on this like little cart thing they have. And they can't get out. And Bing Bong realizes we can't both get out. So he's like coaching her up, and like leading her. And he's like, "You're gonna do a great job. You're gonna help her. You can do this. You can get that." And at the last second, he steps off, and she makes it up there. And then she's like, "Oh my God, we did it, we did it." And then she realizes he's still down there, and he fades away. And he says, "Take care of her." And it's like, one, like if you don't cry during that scene, you have no soul. Like because I like from a coaching standpoint, it's like, yeah, like there's a lot of people that like do, like service for others for themselves, like think about the people that post videos of themselves feeding, people on the street or giving people money. Like there's those clips, like they just want to have social likes for doing good deeds. Or like there's a lot of coaches out there that are really just about their own self promotion. But then there's a lot of people that go the Bing Bong route, where it's like you literally are in the service of others and you sacrifice things so others can have a better quality of life. And it may be even just a simple thing, like setting up the night before for your athletes or something, like you're in there on a Sunday when everybody else is out having fun. You're doing these things for these other people, just as an example. But, I always thought that was a great scene that like represents good coaching.
Hmm.
At some point you have to step off of the cart and let them go and fly on their own. And it's a very powerful scene. So
Yeah,
one of my favorites of all time. So that'd be my honorable coaching mention.
nice.
All right. Well, that was fun. Top
Yeah,
5 movies. And now I have a lot of movies to watch. So Miguel, we're gonna meet later on this evening and do another live stream here. And we're gonna talk all about the push-up and read a old CrossFit article. So you're away next week, next weekend, and I'm away all next week. So we're kind of doubling up today, so people will have a lot to watch and listen to.
yeah.
In that time. So where can everybody follow you?
Still on Instagram at Couldn't Be Miguel.
Awesome. I am on Instagram as well, James A. McDermott. We got to figure out how to get your handle under your name here.
Oh yeah.
We'll do that for the next one. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and go watch some of those movies, and then follow up in the comments. Let us know what your top 5 movie training scenes are. We did have a Frank message me after the top 5 sports moments, and he's canceling the show because of my my comments about golf.
Mm,
You remember I didn't have the best
yeah.
comments about golf, so he said the show is canceled. We're done. But eventually we'll have to get him on here to talk about his top 5 sports moments, because he told me his. But let us know your top 5 movie moments. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you again later in the day.